Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to be cutting through some really dense therapeutic literature, a lot of clinical workbooks.
Yeah, and we're focusing on one of the most personal battles in life.
We really are. We're doing a deep dive into the cognitive architecture of recovery.
That's right. So we're not looking at, the logistics of sobriety, but the mental battleground itself specifically, that moment-to-moment thought process that's involved in managing the desire to use substances. I mean, that's where the fight is won or lost.
And our sources for this deep dive, they come directly from these therapeutic manuals that are used to help people in recovery, to help them identify and challenge those really tricky internal thoughts that come before relapse.
Mm.
Our mission here is to pull out the key strategies, those common thought patterns, to give you a fast track to understanding this really critical step in recovery.
And it's so crucial to understand the foundation here. Thoughts of using, they're cited in all the source material as being common. I mean, a very normal part of the whole change process. The goal isn't some magical elimination of the thoughts.
Right.
The goal is preparation. It's learning to challenge them. And by doing that, you decrease the risk of relapse and you dramatically raise your self-confidence in managing your own mind.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's start at the beginning with the psychological setup. How does a relapse process actually begin in the mind? The material we've looked at, it draws a really clear line from a belief to a feeling and then to an action.
Yeah, and when therapists look at what increases vulnerability, the sources highlight two core concepts. The first one, and maybe the best known, is cognitive distortions.
Ah, yeah.
These are just faulty ways of thinking, or, as they're sometimes colorfully called in 12-step literature, stinking thinking.
That phrase is just so sticky because it's so accurate.
It is, isn't it? And these distortions, they skew reality. They're not just tied to substance use. The literature connects them to generalized depression, anxiety. I mean, they're the mental filter that makes using seem like a reasonable or even a necessary solution to whatever problem you're facing.
So if cognitive distortions are the kind of internal lies we tell ourselves, this second concept seems way more subtle, and maybe because of that, a lot more dangerous.
It is.
It's the idea of the apparently irrelevant decision, or AIDS.
Exactly. And these are decisions that on the surface, they look completely harmless, maybe even benign, but they're the crucial first domino that sets the entire stage for a relapse.
What's so fascinating there is how well rationalized they are. I mean, they seem truly unimportant, logical even, but they lead the person directly into a high-risk situation they didn't consciously plan to enter.
Right.
But if the decision is irrelevant on the surface, like, choosing a certain route home or accepting a casual invitation, how can a person spot it before it becomes a problem? Is there some kind of marker?
That's a brilliant question. And the marker is often activation or proximity. The sources explain that the aid is irrelevant only to the immediate goal of staying sober, but it is highly relevant to the body's memory.
Okay.
So take the example of someone who's quitting smoking. They might decide to join their coworkers outside during a break, and they'll say, oh, I just want some fresh air. That right there is the aid.
Which sounds totally social, not dangerous at all.
Precisely. But the second that person is standing in that smoke circle, smelling the tobacco, hearing the flick of a lighter, they've just activated this whole cascade of sensory and neurological memories that makes the craving immediate, almost overwhelming.
Wow.
They move from a zero-risk environment to a 5-alarm situation based on an apparently irrelevant social decision.
Or the example from the manual, the client quitting alcohol who decides to just drop by a friend's house. A friend they know keeps a full liquor cabinet.
Yes. The decision isn't, I'm going to drink. The decision is, I'm going to see my friend. That's the setup. It's not the immediate action.
It's the ultimate self-sabotage by convenience. You're making the lie easier to execute later.
Exactly.
Okay, now let's get into the core of the therapeutic manual.
Yeah.
The common internal dialogue. The workbooks, they have this consolidated list. It's worksheet 9.1 of the 11 most common thoughts people experience, especially in early recovery.
And we have to acknowledge that these thoughts are common for a reason. People have real memories of desired effects, the relief, the fun, the feeling of escape.
The mind is just a highly efficient memory machine.
Yeah.
It retrieves the highlight reel, not the full movie with all the consequences.
That's a great way to put it. And by categorizing these 11 messages, we can prepare better. So let's start with what I think is the ultimate pitfall. The illusion of control and bargaining.
Ah, the belief that the problem is solved, so the rules don't apply to you anymore.
That's thought number one. I'll never use again. I've got my problem under control. What's so critical here is when this thought tends to hit. It's usually after the acute physical withdrawal is over, creating this this false peak of capability.
So you feel better physically.
Yeah, and your mind convinces you the psychological battle is also won. And that leads to this massive overconfidence and, a drop in your vigilance.
That makes the overconfidence just as dangerous as the desperation was. What else falls into this category?
Well, closely related are the bargaining thoughts. So thought number 2. A few won't hurt. This is the rationalization that a small, controlled amount is now somehow possible.
The exception.
The exception, yes. And then there's thought number 8, which is the ultimate test. I'm going to test myself to see if I can have just one. All three are just variations on these internal negotiations that recovery programs explicitly warn you against.
Okay, let's move to the next grouping, which is the emotional escape category. This is the classic use of substances as a tool for quick self-regulation.
And this covers regulating distress in 2 ways. First is the desire for relaxation. That's thought 4. I need something to take the edge off and help me relax. It frames the substance as, essential for emotional balance.
And the other side.
The other is the desire for escape, which is thought 5. Life is difficult. I need to escape for a while. This is just pure motivational collapse, driven by stress.
But I want to pause here for a second. Isn't thought 4 that need to take the edge off? Isn't that actually true for a lot of people dealing with trauma or stress or high anxiety? How do the manuals address the need for real relief versus the quick chemical fix?
That's the critical distinction. The thought identifies a genuine need, the need for calm, the need for escape. But the substance is a shortcut that ultimately makes the underlying emotional problem worse.
Right.
So the manuals teach that the proper counterstatement acknowledges the need for relaxation, but then it reframes the substance as the cause of the chaos.
Not the cure for it.
Exactly, not the cure. It forces the person to find new, non-destructive coping mechanisms for that very real need.
Excellent point. Okay, moving on to the external drivers, this social and hedonic argument. Basically the belief that sobriety is a drag.
Yeah, that's thought 3. I can't have fun or excitement if I don't use. And this is a monumental hurdle because it forces the person to fundamentally rethink their entire social identity.
And then there's the peer pressure part.
A huge part. That's covered by thought 6. I can't fit in with others if they use and I don't. And then thought 9 is the specific application of that. How can I go out with John if I don't drink? The fear of social friction is often more immediate and more intimidating than the fear of a long-term relapse.
Oh, absolutely. The fear of being the odd one out can override logic in seconds. Okay, finally, let's cover the category that reflects isolation and just total defeat, hopelessness and secrecy.
These are the darker rationalizations, where the motivation is just fueled by futility. Thought 7. What's the point in staying sober? It really doesn't matter. It's the abandonment of hope.
And it gets tied to other problems.
Often coupled with external problems, like thought 10. I'll never get out of debt, I might as well get drunk. The mind uses real-life stress as an excuse for, internal abandonment.
And then the thought that guarantees a complete lack of accountability. Thought 11. I could drink and no one would ever know.
Secrecy is a huge trigger. It's often linked to feelings of shame or failure. The whole goal of identifying these 11 thoughts isn't just to see them, but to recognize that they aren't unique. They are predictable, common scripts that the addictive part of the brain just runs on a loop.
So we've identified the common thought traps. Now let's transition into the active counterattack. What are the coping strategies designed to challenge these specific thought patterns in the moment?
Okay, so the process is structured into 3 foundational steps. Step 1 is the most critical. Monitor your thoughts. You have to be aware of your stinking thinking taking over. Awareness is the prerequisite for choice.
Simple awareness. It's the first and, I imagine, the hardest part. What's step 2, the preparation?
Step 2 is the practice the workbook really insists on. Devise counterstatements. You have to prepare strong, rational, personal arguments against that thought ahead of time.
So you're not winging it?
No. You shouldn't be trying to debate your addiction when you're already under emotional stress. You need a pre-written script ready to go.
Okay, let's model that. Say I struggle with thought 3. I can't have fun if I don't use a Krevengo. What does a prepared counterstatement look like?
A good one first acknowledges the lie, then it immediately pivots to the evidence. For example, I know that thought is trying to convince me sobriety is boring, but that's the same lie I told myself last year. Fact. I went to that concert last weekend, and I actually remember the band, and I woke up without shame. Immediate action. If I'm bored right now, I'm going to call a friend or go do that new hobby I started.
So it shifts the focus from a feeling to a fact,
Yeah.
and from just sitting there to taking action.
Yes, exactly. It's not just a rejection, it's a replacement.
And step 3 is maybe the most empowering conceptual move of them all.
I think so. It's don't act on your thoughts. This is about separation. There is a critical difference between a thought, a feeling, and an action. The fact that an intrusive thought pops into your head doesn't mean you have to act on it. You can choose to challenge the message, use your counterstatements, or sometimes just ignore it until it passes.
That shift from feeling like you're obligated by a thought to realizing you have an interval of choice, that feels like the defining pivot point in this entire manual. That's the moment you get your power back.
It absolutely is.
Okay, so now let's look at the broader, supportive cognitive techniques that help bolster recovery confidence over the long term, moving beyond just the immediate counterpunch. What are the high-level strategies the source material recommends?
They all kind of synthesize into a focused effort on maintaining perspective. The first is a two-pronged strategy. Focus on benefits and problems. You need to actively remind yourself why you're doing this in the first place.
Okay, so start with the positive reinforcement.
Yes. Remember the benefits of not using substances. Remind yourself of the physical health gains, the restored relationships, the financial improvements, maybe the spiritual peace you've gained since stopping. These benefits have to be reviewed actively and often.
And the second prong is remembering the pain that drove the initial decision to quit.
Correct. Remember the problems caused by using. Reviewing past negative events, the legal issues, the family fights, the professional fallout. That serves as a powerful, rational reminder of the full consequence of giving in to that one momentary thought.
This sounds less like just an emotional reaction and more like a rational cost-benefit analysis of the decision.
It leads directly into the next high-level technique, which is called think through the drink or drug. So instead of focusing on that immediate high or release, you have to engage in full, rational analysis of the entire cycle.
Okay, let's walk through that whole negative narrative. What does the full analysis actually look like?
It goes way beyond the first few seconds of relief. It's analyzing the entire arc. So the thought might start with, I'll feel good for 30 minutes. The rational analysis has to intervene. Okay, then I'll use more than I intended. I will feel complete shame immediately afterward. I'll have to lie to my partner and friends. I'll damage my health. I'll have to start my recovery plan over from day one. And tomorrow, I will wake up feeling 10 times worse than I do right now.
That projection of the full negative outcome can be powerful enough to interrupt the immediate craving.
It's forcing your brain to process the future guilt, not just the momentary high. That's a huge leverage point.
It is. And another powerful technique is simply manipulating time. Practice time delay.
How long do the sources suggest we should delay that decision?
The recommendation is to delay the decision to use for several hours, or even just to say, I'll wait until tomorrow to use.
Okay.
Often, the intensity of a craving or an intrusive thought, it follows a curve. If you can withstand the peak for, say, 15 to 30 minutes or just buy yourself a full night's sleep, the pressure often subsides naturally. Buying time is an extremely effective, low-effort strategy. And what about those quick mental shortcuts? The slogans and affirmations that act as immediate cognitive interruptions.
Oh, they're essential tools for immediate reflection. The source material encourages using recovery slogans from programs like AA and NA. This too shall pass, one day at a time. Keep it simple. They act as these ready-made counter-reflections designed to halt a spiraling thought process.
And clients are encouraged to make their own too.
Yes, strongly encouraged to create their own personalized slogans based on their specific challenges.
And the importance of positive affirmations.
Immense. This is active cognitive reprogramming. Repeatedly saying statements like, I can choose not to use, or I'm capable of staying sober, helps overwrite the negative self-talk. The material suggests that even if you don't fully believe these statements at first,
Fake it till you make it.
pretty much, the repetition allows the positive beliefs to eventually take root and restructure your self-perception.
And that leads to the final major piece of identity work.
Think of yourself as a sober person. View abstinence not as an enforced punishment or a temporary sacrifice, but as a normal, fundamental part of your identity. You start each day with that self-perception. I am a person who is sober and capable of navigating today without using.
What a powerful inventory of tools. I mean, if we step back and summarize, the core insight here is that successful recovery management really just hinges on successfully managing your internal dialogue. It means learning to spot that stinking thinking and actively challenging it, which then prevents that apparently irrelevant decision that sets the whole stage for disaster. This knowledge provides a powerful, actionable framework.
That's the crux of the therapeutic process. And the source material emphasizes that while these thoughts are especially intense in the early weeks and months, the brain has learned a powerful set of rationalizations over time, which I think raises an important question for you, the listener, to consider. If the brain continues to produce these convincing, positive rationalizations about a destructive habit, even after the negative outcomes are known and stopped, what does the ongoing perpetual process of managing these positive thoughts reveal about the enduring nature of true, sustained self-control long after the initial physical problem is considered solved?
It reveals that preparedness is the only permanent requirement. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the cognitive architecture of recovery.